This week in VCT, America's and China Ascensions have officially started. A fan favorite player has officially retired, and the grand final list for the EMEA Ascension tournament have been announced. So let's first start off with the rumor mill that's been happening during this week. And first start off with Les leaving Loud. Yeah, so it looks like it basically looks like that the Loud roster will be exploding in coming to next year. We obviously we know that Sadak, he's rumored to be leaving the team as well, going to Crew Esports. As for Les, I've seen him maybe going to Furia. I'm not too sure how good that is. Or I should say I guess basically just saying like how right it is. Not too sure where Les could go, I'll be honest, but we'll see where he could possibly go. But yeah, I'm not really too sure of where Les could go other than maybe Furia or even MIB if he wants to waste his potential there, I'll be honest, but we'll see where Les could go. NRG is looking now to sign Verno, who was the former player of Auction Esports. Auction Esports, I think, has now officially left the scene, I believe. So all of their players are now free agents, and they are definitely the hottest players, I guess, to say, on the market. I mean, Verno is a massive one as well. If this is the case, then what is their roster going to be like? I think he's the initiator player, so it does look like Crashies will be gone, so they're not going to be continuing with Crashies. Could they maybe get Demon One maybe back in now that Astra and Chamber now back in the meta? Maybe. But I think this is a great pickup there for NRG. I quite like Werner, and he is a very good up and coming player as well in Valorant. So it's great. I really enjoy his like how he plays and stuff, especially when he was on Auction Esports. So this is a pretty good sign there for NRG as well. Shin and Tomazi are rumored to be leaving Carmine Core. I'm a bit surprised, but I'll be honest about Tamazi. Shin, not really, but I think but obviously Shin had some great moments. So, as for Tamazi, I thought he was alright. I thought he actually had some good moments with that team. But it is looking like the team is going to a different direction. I mean, hell, they're right. He's rumored to potentially be going to Sentinels. Don't know where Martine or Magnum could go. Not really too sure, but it does look like that they could be that they will be going to a different direction. I do hope that both of these players do find a home because I mean these two players are great. I'll be honest. I mean Shin, I mean he was in the darkest times last year when he was with that absolute joke of a Combine Core team, but now that he's with a team with actual good players, he definitely showed up. So it's great that Shin was able to bounce back from such a horror 2023 season, and for him to even as well make it to Madrid was definitely a great sign for Carmine Core. Even though yes, they just barely missed out on champs. I mean, I still think this is still a great season though, for Carmine Core. But we'll see what happens to these two players. If they're not in Tier 1, expect them to potentially be in Tier 2. Gentlemates Gooked. This is a very interesting one. It does look like that Gentlemates are looking elsewhere other than just French players. I think they're definitely going to have like still some French talent, but they're kind of doing what Carmine Cole was doing, where they gain like a bit more players in the European scene. If they do get input, I'll be very surprised. But it does look like that Gentlemates are looking not just for French talent, but also for EMEA talent as a whole, which I quite like because I mean, this team definitely has potential. I mean, with Gooked in the lineup now as a coach, potentially pretty good. I mean, he was with Leviathan. Yes, he kind of struggled, and he did leave the team midway. But I still think he's a very good coach in my opinion. So I'll be interested to see, especially what the fan base thinks of it, considering that Gentleman's I'm pretty sure is like a streaming group, so kind of like I guess kind of like Moist X Shopify or Disguise even in North American terms. So I'll be interested to see what the fan base thinks of it because I think the Carmine Core fans were quite happy of their performance. So we'll see what happens there with Gentlemates fans. But I still quite like this decision though to get Gooked into the lineup as a coach. Another potential coach is Team Liquid Lohan. Lohan was formerly from Job Life. If you haven't seen my video about my explanation of the mouse and job life situation, check up there if you want to have a look at it. But yeah, I quite like this change, I'll be honest. I mean, I was more expecting. I really thought Liquid was possibly maybe going to promote one of the coaches from Apex, if Apex doesn't actually make it, obviously. But I mean, Lohan is still a pretty good is still a pretty good shout as well. Obviously, yes, he has been in other teams as well, but most notably with Job Life. Obviously, yes, because of the whole controversy, but also because I mean, Job Life they were part of Ascension, so I think it definitely makes sense for Team Liquid to look for a coach that was in Ascension. So okay, I like this change. Like, yes, they could maybe go for like the CGN coach, for example. Or I mean, I don't know, you could maybe go for maybe Mouse's or Boris's coaches. But I mean, Lohan is still a pretty good choice as well for Team Liquid, so we'll see what they cook up. And the final rumor is Glow Esports Juvenile. The former head assistant coach for Leviathan is rumored to be going to India to help out Glow Esports. And I'll be honest, I quite like this change. There was definitely a change that that was needed for Global Esports, I'll be honest. This season was so dreadful. I mean, last year was dreadful as well, but this season was dreadful as well. I mean, like they had promising players like Polvi, Blaze King as well, but they weren't able to succeed with that roster, which is quite sad. I mean, I thought Ross was pretty good. Benkai definitely had some good moments as well, but Lightning Fast as well. But it's just this team, that whole team just struggled. So I'm glad they're blowing it up. I'm glad that they're restructuring the whole coaching staff. They got rid of spinning big time. They now have a juvenile in. I think this is a good starting point for Glow Esports for the 2025 season. Now for the news throughout the week, and the fan favorite player who have now announced his retirement for the second time is TenZ. Just this morning, as I woke up, TenZ announced that he will be now officially retiring from professional play, as he will be now a content creator for Sentinels. Yes, this is very sad for the whole Valorant community, as this is not the first time TenZ has retired, as he did retire in his early days of Valorant when he was with Cloud9. So I can understand obviously his reason for retirement. I mean, he has been in the scene since the very beginning. He has been competing since the very beginning of the scene. So I can understand why he wanted to retire. And how, I mean, his win in Madrid definitely helps it. Yes, he missed out on Shanghai. Getting fourth place in champs was still a great showing there for him. And apparently, as well, he told his teammates, I think before champs, I believe. So I guess they were playing for much higher stake. But I mean, so what? Fourth place is still a very good ending for TenZ. It does look like that he potentially might be doing some watch parties maybe for Valorant. I won't be surprised if he maybe tried that deadlock, which I will be also trying that as well. But we'll see what really happens. But TenZ, all I can say is that thank you for the memories in the VCT scene, and I wish you all the very best in your content creation. Now for some, I guess, more lighthearted news other than retirements. He is now a restricted free agent from Crew, and I'm very surprised that they have let them go. I thought being added to this team basically turned this team single-handedly around. Yes, you can maybe even say maybe Melser, or sorry, I should say MTA taking the IGL role, but I thought Heat was the standout, I'll be honest, for this team. I generally thought that. So with him now restricted free agent, I'm a bit surprised about that. So, but if he doesn't stay back with Crew, I don't know where he could go, I'll be honest. I mean, you potentially, maybe MIBR, if he wants to go back there for some reason. Could he maybe go to Loud, maybe? I'm not too sure, but I still think the best option for him is to stick with Career Sports. I'm, I mean, with Sardak coming in as well, potentially as a new IGL, this is wonders. I'll be honest for Heat. He should stay in Career Sports, but we'll see what happens though. I want to quickly as well talk about Tamazi and Shin once again, as they are now restricted free agents from Carmine Court. This was obviously rumors that both they will be leaving the team, so I guess there's no surprise there, but I just want to quickly talk about it though. I mean, considering it was rumored, not surprised. Where could they go? I'm not too sure. Could Tomasi maybe go to another team or Shin as well? Potentially, but just like I said, it's well in the Rumour Mill. Expect them, if they're not in tier 1, expect them to be in tier 2. Next up is Vlad, as he was the analyst for Navi, as he has now officially left the team. I mean, it doesn't really help, I'll be honest, that Navi struggled in this year in 2024. So I'm not surprised that they're just blowing up everything and redoing everything. I mean, I think the only two players that are still there are Angel and Shao, I believe. I think Galactex is still in it as well, I believe. So there's still some pieces that are still in that team that could maybe carry over to 2025. But I mean, I think it's definitely needed for Na'Vi to explode everything. Emil is also now a restricted free agent for Team Liquid. I'm a bit surprised about this, but to be fair as well, Liquid, they really struggled in this year compared to last year, where they were the EMEA champions. The first ever champions of the regular season, I guess we'll say. For them to struggle this much now this year was a bit surprised, and I was not expecting it. So it would be really funny though if Doom Bros comes in and then Navi signs Emil. That would be quite funny, but I don't think that's gonna be happening. I'll be very surprised if it does, but I don't think it's gonna be happening. But we'll see where Emil could go. Could he maybe go to maybe another team in tier 1? I think he's definitely tier 1 material, but I just don't know what team would really want him. I mean, I think Johnny Dex announced that Pipson is back, including Cloud as well as the IGL. Could he maybe, I don't know, could he maybe go to the assistant coach role? Could he maybe help out? Maybe, I guess we'll say maybe, let's just say, Fnatic maybe, since that mini is gone. Could he maybe go to, I'm trying to think about all the other teams right now. I'm trying to think. I mean, maybe Team Heretics, but it looks like Heretics are pretty happy with their coaching stuff. I'm not too sure where you could go if you're Emil. I mean, if you want to stick with tier 1, it's better to maybe go with a team that was midfield. But is this looking like that quite a lot of teams are pretty happy with the coaching staff carrying over from this year to last year? Sorry, this year to next year, but we'll see where Emil could go. Final news is that Volp has left the team as the assistant coach for Paper Rex. I'm also a bit surprised about this. I thought Bulb was going to be a long-term project, but apparently not. I thought apparently he's just going to be there for Sage 2, Sage 2 and also Champs, which, I mean, it's cool, but like, I thought Bob was going to be there for the future. I thought he was going to be there for next year as well. Apparently not. So I was caught off guard on this, I'll be honest, but I mean, it does suck. I'll be honest with Bob. I thought he was good. I thought he was all right. Maybe not the best, but just all right. I could tell that he was just playing the second hand for Alex. So yeah, he wasn't really that much help, but same time, that's what assistant coach does. They just help the head coach to create his new ideas, and it looked like Paper X was doing Paper X things, but choking a bit more, I guess we can say. So if Bulb doesn't come back to tier 1, I mean, I won't be surprised. He could maybe go back down to tier 2. I think this was the first team that he coaches, but I might be wrong. But we'll see where Bulb could go. Let's now talk about Ascension Americas, and first start off with M80, who has qualified into the playoffs after playing their 4 games against all 9 Red Tag Galleries and TSM. Obviously, they won every single one of them. Xander and Kuala were your MVPs. And like I said, M80, they are the favorites coming into this event, which I'm not surprised about whatsoever. I mean, this team, they have great pieces. They still have the 3 players of Xander, Kuala and Nismo. They added Ned and BCJ into the lineup, and it has definitely helped this team. So it's a great show there from M80. If they do come second again, I will be very, very surprised and also pretty disappointed of this team. The other North American team, TSM, is not going well, we'll say. They played 4 games against Galerace, Retta, 2-game, and M80. They won against, I think it was Galerace, I believe, and then lost the other 3. Sim and GMD were my MVPs in this week. And yeah, it was just not a good showing there for TSM whatsoever. And I was not expecting them to struggle this much. I thought it was going to be like a midfield team at least. I wasn't expecting them to be like 5th or 6th, I believe, in the standings. Like, that is just disappointing for TSM as a whole. But maybe I had a bit, I guess maybe I had a bit of high hopes for this team to do well. Yeah, they're not doing well whatsoever. But I mean, they could potentially maybe turn it around, but I'll be very, very surprised if they even make it into the top four just because of what we've seen so far of this team. But I mean, obviously, I could easily be wrong, but I will still be very, very surprised if they still somehow make it into the top four. The team which I thought were going to be dark horses are actually average. That is Reta Esports. They play 4 games against 2 games, TSM, M80, and All Nights. They won against, I'm going to try and get this right, 2 games, sorry, TSM and All Nights, but they lost against 2 games in M80. Snow, Delzik, and Souther were my MVPs throughout this week. And yeah, I thought they were going to be good. Yeah, I wasn't expecting them to struggle, but to be fair, 2 games in M80, especially M80, those 2 teams have been top 2 teams so far in this tournament. Obviously, we will be talking about 2 games pretty soon, but I guess that shows that Red are actually a pretty average team that could maybe do well. And considering that they are also now that they are in the top four as of right now, it is very, very close in the top four for the other 3 places. But I mean, I'm not too sure. I mean, I think Reto could definitely make it into top four, in my opinion, of just from what we've seen so far, especially from like Snow and Delzik. But I don't know from the other players, I'll be honest. Nags, he's kind of struggled as well, which is a bit disappointing there. But we'll see what happens to Reta furthermore into this tournament. The Latin team of All Nights, they played 4 games against M80 Galleries, 2 games in Reta. They won against 2 game and Galleries, I believe, but then they lost against M80 and Reta. Dante, he's been really, really good. That duelist player is phenomenal for this team. Adverso, he has also been really, really good as well for this team. But I am very impressed with Dante right now. I mean, from what I've seen, that kid is crazy. He is okay. He is a bit of a neon one trick. He does play a lot of neon, which I guess is mainly what they work around. They work around that neon comp, and it kind of works out for them sometimes. But I can tell as well that they kind of struggle. They kind of overheat sometimes, which is a problem for this team. But I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, they're still in contention of getting into the top four of the playoffs, but it's still definitely there. But if they keep overheating with that neon, thanks to Dante, it might be a bit of a struggle. Now for the Brazilian teams, we have Galleries first. They play 4 games against TSM All Nights M80 in 2 game. They lost again. I'm gonna try and get this right. All Night M80 and 2 game, I believe, but then they won against TSM. I might be wrong. I think they might have won against 2 game, I believe, but I'm going to just correct me if I'm wrong. Luxo and Sato, those 2 players have been the absolute shining bright light of the struggling first seed team for Brazil. I generally thought Galleries were going to be a midfield team. Like I said with TSM, I was not expecting them to be potentially being eliminated next in their next match. I mean, that's how much they are struggling. But these 2 players of Luxor, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, and Sato, those 2 players have been standalones of this team. I mean, I would not be surprised if they are eliminated. I would not be surprised if some Brazilian teams are looking at these 2 players, especially. Luxo, he is a controller player, but plays like a duelist. And Sato, the actual duelist player, has been phenomenal. So everyone else has been kind of lackluster, I guess we can say. They've been very, very quiet. But if Galleries doesn't make it, then expect these 2 players of Luxo and Sato be in Tier 1 coming into next year. I mean, I think Sato was rumored to be joining Furia, I believe, I think at some point. So if that's the case, these 2 players should be in Tier 1 pretty soon. And the final team is 2 Game Esports. They also play 4 games against Reta, TSM, All Nights, and Galleries. They lost against All Nights and Retta, I believe, and then one against TSM Galleries. Maybe I'm wrong. Spike and Silence were my MVPs, and those two players have also been standalone standouts. I also want to give a quick shout out as well to Zap, who has basically been the trash talk of this tournament, which I love. I love when these players' personalities comes out, and it's great fun. I'll be honest. But I mean, this team from actually being contention of going undefeated like M80 so far, yeah, they're not doing that right now. They are in a bit of a dip, especially against the All Knights, where they basically wasted a potential map win too many times, like three, four times on that final game in bind. It was just dreadful to watch. So yeah, I mean, it's a struggle for this team. I'm glad that Spikes and Silence they've been very, very good so far for the team, which is great, but it is still a struggling showing for this team. Moving now to China, first up with XLG Esports. They played two games against Extreme Gaming and Rare Atom. They won against Extreme, but lost against Rare Atom. Raga was my MVP, and I was expected him to be out immediately thanks to Rare Atom. I mean, they're not out immediately. They still have one more chance of making it to the playoffs. I think tonight, I believe. So there's still, I mean, there's still a chance that XLG will be in the playoffs, which is still pretty likely considering that there's only like four teams that are very, very good, and the other four teams are quite average and shit. Actually, no, no, one team are actually pretty good, and we will be talking about them pretty soon. But I mean, they kind of struggled. I'll be honest. I mean, they've kind of been up and down so far. I mean, Raga, he's been very, very good for this team. But at the same time, though, I mean, Martin, who came in as a player who appears to only play for JD Gaming Tier 1, he hasn't really been doing that well, in my opinion. Crystal, he's also kind of struggled as well, even though he's the IGL, but still kind of struggles. So there is some struggling moments for XLG, but let's see if they can do well in the elimination matchup. Another team which is also on the chopping block on the elimination is KBG, or Key Best Gaming. They played two games against Q9 and Chosen Click Gaming. They won against Q9 but lost against CCG. Wolfen was my MVP, including Sujin. Yeah, I mean, like, look, the Q9 game was looking good. I think there were definitely that there were some struggling moments, but Wolfen he was phenomenal in that game. As for CCG against Chosen Click Gaming, I feel like they kind of struggled. I mean, Sujin, he was maybe the only standalone. Dimasic, he was pretty good as well. But everyone else, I'll be honest, in KBG weren't the best. So with them struggling, I was not expect. I kind of expect them to maybe have this game a bit more close. Well, in actuality, it was not close whatsoever. So that's a bit of a worry there for the two teams, XLG and KBG, as they were the top two seeds coming into this tournament, are now looking potentially they've been eliminated from playoff contention. Which if that does happen, that would be a massive upset. Next up now is Chosen Click Gaming, as they have qualified now to the playoffs after their wins against ALG and KPG. Maple was my MVP. And the one thing I was very surprised about this team, other than winning against Keep Best Gaming, was that they actually communicate English, which I was not surprised. Which I was very, very surprised about. I mean, I knew they were going to struggle with communications when I saw their roster having not only an Australian player but also a Portuguese player as well, and having majority of Chinese players. To be fair as well, the Chinese players are actually very good English. I mean, Coco surprised me, including Zaijon as well, and who's the other one? I think it's a Snail. I think Snail was with Key Best Gaming, I believe. I can't remember what his name is right now. It's pissing me off. But either way, I mean, Chosen Click Gaming, they have been very, very, very good. And I think it does look like that Maple is the IGL for this team, which also baffles me. It does look like that he in my opinion, he's just a better version of Plix. That's in my opinion. He's just a better version of Plix. Like, like when Plex was the duelist player, and He was calling all the shots for his team. Maple is doing the exact same thing now for his team of Chosen Click Gaming. So it is looking like that this team is now one of the favorites to make it to tier 1, including maybe it was potentially to with Rare Adam, but we'll see what really happens in the playoffs. Next up is EY Gaming as they played 2 games against Rare Adam and Extreme Gaming. They won against Extreme Gaming but lost against Rare Adam. Slowly and YOU were my MVPs. And I guess Rare Adam, they were like a different team. They were struggling. I felt like there were nerves on this team. But hell, considering that they got Bisc and Fakio as well for this tournament as well, they struggled. They really, really did. But when they versus against Extreme Gaming, they were just a completely different team. Like YOU, I'm pretty sure the IGL for this team was the best player in that team. I'll be honest. I mean, Bisc had some good moments. FFS had some good moments as well, but it was mainly YOU who was doing everything for this team. So I'm very, very surprised, and considering that ZY Gaming is mainly compressed with mainly tier 1 players and up and coming tier 2 players, I thought this team was going to do well, when it is looking like that if they do keep up with this performance, I think they're going to be versing XLG, I believe. I mean, hell, I'm all for it. I mean, if ZYG somehow wins against XLG that would be a massive, massive upset. Next up is Rare Adams. They played 2 games against ZY Gaming and XLG. They won both of them. Freeing was my MVP. And Freeing, he has been an absolute amazing player, an amazing addition for this team. He is maybe one of the best cloves I've ever seen in this game. Every single time when we go on to Lotus, that is like Freeing's home, I swear. He plays so good on that map on Clove, and it says something that that team should maybe start banning Lotus. I'll be honest, like, just because of how good Freeing is on that map. But I mean, more power to them, I guess. But this is a very, very good looking Rare Adam squad. From where I thought they were going to struggle a bit, and I think they were like the 7th seed or something, or the 6th seed. Coming into this tournament is now looking like one of the favorites to win this entire thing and make it up to tier 1. If that does happen, oh my god, everyone is going to be celebrating. Next up is ALG, as they played 2 games against Chosen Click Gaming in Q9. They lost against CCG, but they won against Q9. Chaos and Lil Man were my MVPs. I mean, this team, it's very hard to judge them, I'll be honest, because there's not a lot of, I don't think any of these players have Wikipedia pages, so I don't really know where they came from, I'll be honest. I have no idea, but I mean, they kind of just been there, I'll be honest. Some very, very sloppy Valorant play, I'll be honest, I'll say. Extremely, extremely sloppy. But it's still a decent showing there from ALG. I thought that they were going to win against Q9, and they did. But now that they're going to be versing Key Best Gaming, we'll see how that goes. I'll be very, very surprised if Key Best Gaming loses this game. Next up is Q9, the first team which has been eliminated from Ascension, as they played 2 games against Key Best Gaming and ALG, and they lost both of them. Player was my MVP, placing 7th through 8th. I mean, I'm not surprised, I'll be honest. This team and Extreme Gaming, which we'll get onto soon, they were maybe the bottom team in everyone's power rankings, I bet. I mean, there was nothing good you could really say about this team other than, I mean, there were some good moments, but like, they weren't consistent enough. I mean, yes, Q9 has like X-Ray B, for example, who was the I think the player for all gamers, I believe. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Like, even if there is a team, like, even if there is like one player that has played in tier 1, it doesn't matter. They're still going to struggle just because of the unknown talent in that team. So I'm not surprised, but we kind of expected this, I'll be honest, to happen. Next up is Extreme Gaming, as they played 2 games against XLG and ZY Gaming, and they lost both of them. QE and 5cm were my MVPs. Yeah, just like I said with Q9, I'm not surprised. Yes, you have QE. Yes, you have Core, who both of them used to play in Tier 1. It does not matter when, if you have players in Tier 1 in your roster, but everyone else is kind of just who mega lols, then you're going to struggle. And that's just kind of the same things happen with Extreme Gaming. I mean, yes, it has some great players like Kyugi, like Core, like 5cm as well, but everyone else have kind of struggled, which is the main problem with this type of team. So I'm not surprised that they have been eliminated immediately from this tournament. It's just that they need to work on a lot more things to be proven to be actual contenders in Tier 1. First up now is Apex for the EMEA Ascension tournament as they play one game against CGN Esports as Kayak was my MVP. Kayak he has been one of the best players, I'll be honest, in this whole tournament. Not only for Apex, but just I guess all the other players, I'll be honest. I mean, maybe the closest player to him is maybe Comeback for Pacific Esports, which we'll be talking about them pretty soon. They are in the grand final for basically one spot in the 2025 field of the EMEA teams, and the next team on our list will be versing them to get that spot for themselves. And that team is Pacific Esports. They played two games against the Ultimates and CGN, winning both, and Comeback was my MVP. If Pacific Esports doesn't actually make it into, doesn't actually make it into Tier 1, Comeback has to be looked at as a promising Turkish player that everyone will be looking at. He has been so good as well for his team. I mean, I think you can maybe say like Larok as well, Rosie, both of them have been also pretty good for this team as well. But Comeback has been an absolute standalone for this team. And hell, I mean, they won against the Ultimates, they won against CGN Esports. It's looking good so far for this team, and if they can keep this up, they might maybe make it into Tier 1. The Ultimates is up next, and they did place 4th after their loss against Pacific Esports. Fighter was my MVP, and I mean, it's kind of expected, I'll be honest, but I want to give the Ultimates a benefit of the doubt. It was still a very, very impressive performance from this team, from somehow making it into the playoffs. Yes, with maybe a bit of a luck on their hands with the whole drama with Mouth and Job Life. I mean, they still made it into the playoffs fair and square. So it's still an amazing showing from this team for making it into the top four at the international level. So it's amazing for this team. I want to give absolutely props for that whole entire organization from potentially not even having an org to back them after Team Falcons left them to now being in the team with the Ultimate and making it into top four in their first Ascension tournament. Very, very impressive from that entire organization. Even though yes, they wish they would have made it, they probably would have made it into maybe the grand final or even into tier one. I think it's still a very, very good showing there for not only for the Ultimates, but for the entire of the MENA region as a whole. And the final team is CGN Esports. They once again will not make it into Tier 1 for the second year in a row after their loss against Apex and Pacific Esports in front of their home crowd. Vince and Element were my MVPs, placing third place. God, what a gut punch for CGN Esports. I mean, this team are very, very good. There's no slouches whatsoever. They came here from the play-ins. They swept. They made it into the playoffs, which is what they wanted. They played against a home crowd against Pacific Esports, but they lost in front of the home crowd. Yeah, no, I mean, it's sad for CGN, but at the same time, I generally think this team are tier one worthy. They have such great pieces. Vince, Benny, Element, everyone on this team for CGN have been phenomenal for their entire organization. So I would not be surprised if even some of these players will be looked at into tier one. I'll be very surprised if they're not, but I won't be surprised if they are potentially be coming up to tier one. I'll be honest, because some of these players are very, very good and should be in tier one, but we'll see what really happens though. But I have been very, very impressed with this team, but it's just so gut wrenching that they lost again of making it into Tier 1 for the second year in a row. And that is it for this week in VCT. Now, like you know, guys, to like, comment, and subscribe would really help, especially on this channel. And I'll catch you guys all next time in the next episode of This Week in VCT, or even in another, or even in another video as well. Catch you guys next time in the next one. Goodbye.